I walked through the front door at 4:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, which was wrong on every level. I'm never home before 7. Elena was in the kitchen, her back to me, arranging flowers in a crystal vase that cost more than most people make in a week. The afternoon light was hitting the marble countertops, and I could smell the jasmine candles she always kept burning in the entryway. Everything looked perfect, clean, expensive, untouchable. I loosened my tie and let my briefcase drop to the floor with a thud that made her turn around. "Robert?" She looked at me like I'd broken into my own house. "Why are you home so early? Are you sick?" I wasn't sick. I was about to run the most important test of my life. I'd spent 23 years building my company from the ground up, started in a garage apartment with nothing but a laptop and a credit card that was maxed out by month 2. Now I had 340 employees, offices in 4 states, and a net worth that would make most people's eyes water. Elena came into my life 12 years ago when I was already successful but not yet wealthy. She was beautiful, charming, and she knew exactly how to make me feel like the most important man in the room. But lately, I'd been noticing things, little things that added up to something I didn't want to face. The way she perked up when I mentioned bonuses, but glazed over when I talked about the work itself. The way she'd scroll through her phone during dinner, liking pictures of yachts and vacation homes, always followed by a subtle comment about what we could have. The way our kids, Marcus and Sophia, ages 14 and 12, would come to me asking for money for school supplies, even though Eleanor's credit cards had no limit. I'd been thinking about this for months. We had our 20th anniversary coming up in 8 weeks. She wanted to renew our vows in Italy. Big ceremony, all her friends, a $250,000 party to prove to everyone that we were still the perfect couple. I wanted to believe we were, but I needed to know the truth before I stood in front of those people and lied to myself again. So I made a decision. I was going to stage a financial collapse and watch what she did. If she stood by me, if she put her hand in mine and said, "We'll figure it out together," then I'd tell her the truth. We'd laugh about it, and I'd throw her the biggest anniversary party Rome had ever seen. If she didn't, well, I'd know exactly who I was married to. I'd spent 3 weeks setting up the story with my CFO and my attorney, created fake documents showing embezzlement, fake letters from the SEC, fake bank notices about frozen accounts. Everything was designed to look like my world was collapsing in real time, and now it was time to see if my wife loved me, or if she loved what I could buy her. "Elena," I said, and I let my voice crack just a little. "We need to talk, right now." She set down the flower she was holding. I watched her face shift from annoyed to curious, to something that looked almost like concern. Almost. "What's wrong?" she asked, but she didn't move toward me. She stayed on her side of the kitchen island, that massive slab of Carrara marble that cost $18,000 and took 6 men to install. I walked to the bar cart and poured myself 2 fingers of scotch, even though I rarely drink before dinner. My hands were steady, but I made them shake just a little as I lifted the glass. "Tom," I said, naming my CFO, "Tom's been arrested." "What?" She grabbed her phone immediately, not to comfort me, to check. "What do you mean arrested?" "FBI showed up this morning. Embezzlement, wire fraud. He's been siphoning money out of the company for the last 18 months. Eleanor, he took everything." I watched her face very carefully. I'd been watching faces across negotiating tables for 2 decades. I knew what real shock looked like. I knew what real concern looked like. What I saw on Elena's face was neither. What I saw was calculation. "How much?" she asked. Not "Are you okay?" Not "What can I do?" Not even "Is the company going to survive?" Just "How much?" "They're saying 43 million, I said, "but it's worse than that. The SEC is freezing all our accounts pending investigation. Everything. Business accounts, personal accounts. They're looking at everything I've ever touched to make sure I wasn't in on it." "That's insane," she said, and she was pacing now, her heels clicking on the travertine floors. "You didn't do anything wrong. You can fight this." "I plan to," I said. "But Elena, the legal fees alone are going to be astronomical, and until they unfreeze the accounts, we don't have access to any of it. The mortgage payment is due in 12 days. The kids' school tuition is due in 3 weeks. Your Land Rover lease payment—" "What about the money in my name?" she interrupted. I paused, took a slow sip of the scotch. What money in your name? The account you opened for me. The one you said was for emergencies. That account had $78,000 in it. I'd opened it 5 years ago and told her it was mad money for anything she wanted. She'd never mentioned it before, never asked about it. I'd honestly forgotten it existed. That's not frozen, I said carefully. That's separate. But Elena, $78,000 isn't going to get us very far if this drags out. We might need that for the lawyer. For your lawyer, she said. And there it was. The first crack in the mask. This is your problem, Robert. Your CFO, your company. Don't tell me I need to drain my emergency fund because you didn't catch an embezzler. I felt something cold settle into my chest, but I kept my face neutral, concerned, desperate even. Our problem, I said quietly. Elena, we're married. If I go down, you go down. You understand that, right? They're going to look at every transaction, every purchase. That trip to Dubai last month, the credit card bills that you run up at Bergdorf, they're going to ask where that money came from. She went very still. I didn't do anything illegal, she said. I know you didn't, I said, but right now they think I might have, which means they think you might have too. We're in this together. I walked toward her, reached out to take her hand. She let me, but her fingers were cold and stiff. There was no squeeze back, no we'll get through this together. Just cold fingers and a calculating look in her eyes that I'd never seen before. Or maybe I had seen it before. Maybe I'd just been pretending not to notice. How long until you know more? She asked. My lawyer thinks we'll have preliminary information by tomorrow afternoon, but the full investigation could take 6 months, maybe a year. A year, she repeated, and she pulled her hand away from mine. Robert, I can't live like this for a year. Like what? I asked. We're not bankrupt. We're just frozen. Temporarily. Temporarily, she said, and she laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound, it was bitter, sharp. Do you know what my friends are going to say? Do you know what this is going to look like? I stared at her. Your friends. Eleanor. I might go to prison. That's what we're worried about here, not what your book club thinks. Don't be dramatic, she snapped. You're not going to prison. You didn't do anything. But God, Robert, the timing, the anniversary party. Everyone's already RSVP'd. What am I supposed to tell them? I was praying she would hold my hand and tell me we'd get through it together. But as I stood there in my own kitchen, watching my wife worry about her social calendar, while my world supposedly burned down around us, I realized something. I'd already gotten my answer. If you think I was being naive to even run this test, hit that subscribe button right now. Because what happened next proved I wasn't naive. I was right to be suspicious. And I was about to find out just how right I'd been. Elena didn't sleep in our bed that night. She said she needed to process everything and took one of the guest rooms. I heard her on the phone until past midnight, her voice rising and falling through the walls. I couldn't make out the words, but the tone was clear, sharp, urgent, angry. I stayed in the master bedroom, lying on top of the covers, still wearing my dress shirt and slacks. I'd turned off my phone after sending a few carefully crafted texts to business associates, people Elena might call to verify the story. Everyone was playing their part perfectly. The narrative was airtight. By morning, I'd had maybe 2 hours of sleep. I went downstairs at 6:30 to start the coffee, and that's when I saw the suitcases, 4 of them, Louis Vuitton, lined up in the hallway like soldiers. Elena came down at 7, wearing yoga pants and a cashmere sweater, her hair pulled back in a perfect ponytail. She looked fresh, rested, like she'd slept better than she had in months. Going somewhere? I asked, keeping my voice level. My mother's, she said, not looking at me. She was checking her phone, scrolling through something. Just for a few days, until you sort this mess out. Elena, running away isn't going to help anything. I'm not running away, she snapped. I'm giving you space to deal with your legal issues without having to worry about me and the kids. The kids? I felt my stomach drop. You're taking Marcus and Sophia. They're on fall break. They'll have fun at my mum's place. There's a pool. They won't even notice. They would notice. Marcus had a robotics competition this weekend that he'd been preparing for all month. Sophia had a piano recital on Thursday evening, but I didn't say that. I just watched my wife pack up our children and prepare to abandon me. "When will you be back?" I asked. She finally looked at me then. Her eyes were cold, not sad, not worried, just cold and calculating. "When I know you're not going to drag us down with you," she said. And then she was gone. I heard her SUV start in the garage, heard the door roll up, heard her pull away. The house fell silent except for the hum of the refrigerator and the clock ticking in the hallway. I stood there for a long moment, just breathing, feeling the weight of what I'd just learned. Then I went upstairs to the guest room she'd slept in. I'm not proud of what I did next, but I'd be lying if I said I hadn't planned for it. I pulled out the small voice-activated recorder I'd hidden in the nightstand drawer the day before, the one I'd placed in every room of the house just in case. I sat on the edge of the bed and hit play. What I heard made my blood run cold. The first call was to her brother, Alex. He lived in Manhattan, worked in private equity, and had always treated me like I was lucky to be married to his sister. "Alex, listen to me carefully," Elena's voice said, sharp and urgent. "Robert's company is going under. FBI investigation, embezzlement. Everything's frozen. I need you to tell me how to access the kids' trust fund." There was a pause. I heard Alex's voice, tinny through the phone speaker. "Elena, that's an irrevocable trust. You can't touch it. It's for their education and—" "I know what it's for," she interrupted. "But there has to be a way, an emergency clause or something. Robert set it up through that estate attorney 5 years ago when his dad died. There's $3.2 million in there, Alex. $3.2 million just sitting there while I'm about to lose everything." "You're not going to lose everything," Alex said. "Robert's smart. He'll figure it out." "Robert's screwed," Elena hissed, "and I'm not going down with him. Those kids are going to need someone to take care of them, and that someone is me. But I can't do that with frozen bank accounts and an FBI investigation hanging over us. I need you to help me figure out how to get access to that trust before the government seizes it." I stopped the recording. My hand was shaking now, for real this time. $3.2 million, the trust fund I'd set up for my kids' futures. Money from my father's estate, combined with investments I'd made over the years, all locked in an irrevocable trust that couldn't be touched until Marcus turned 25, or until Sophia finished graduate school, whichever came first. Elena knew the terms. We'd sat in the attorney's office together when I set it up. She'd smiled and squeezed my hand and said it was so responsible of me to think about their futures. And now she was trying to steal it. I fast-forwarded through the recording. There were more calls, one to a lawyer she'd apparently been talking to before I even came home yesterday. His name was Mitchell something, and he specialized in asset protection. "Mitchell, I need to move quickly," Elena's voice said. "If the trust is irrevocable, what about medical emergency withdrawals? Could I claim one of the kids needs treatment for something expensive enough to justify accessing the fund?" "Mrs. Carrington," the lawyer's voice was cautious, "what you're describing would be fraud. If there's no legitimate medical emergency—" "There could be," Elena said. "Sophia's been having these headaches. We could say we need a specialist. Experimental treatment, something. Just tell me what paperwork I need to start the process." I stopped the recording again. I had to. My hands were gripping the little recorder so hard I thought I might crush it. She wasn't just trying to take the money. She was willing to fake a medical emergency for our 12-year-old daughter to do it. She was willing to commit fraud. She was willing to put Sophia through unnecessary medical tests and specialists and God knows what else, just to get her hands on money that wasn't even legally accessible. The woman I'd married, the mother of my children, the person I'd trusted with every part of my life. I sat there in that guest room, surrounded by her expensive perfume bottles and designer skincare products, and I felt something shift inside me. The test was over. I had my answer. But this wasn't just about a failing marriage anymore. This was about protecting my kids from their own mother. I pulled out my real phone, not the burner I'd been using for the staged crisis, and I made 2 calls. The first was to David Chen, my actual attorney, not the fake crisis attorney I'd been pretending to need. "David," I said when he picked up, "it's Robert. We need to talk." How quickly can you get a team together to review trust fund access logs and start building a fraud case? There was a pause. Robert, what's happened? I need you to assume that someone is going to try to illegally access my children's trust fund in the next 48 hours, I said. And I need every protection in place before they do. Can you make that happen? I'll have something ready by end of business today, David said, his voice shifting into business mode. Should I assume this is related to the bankruptcy test you told me about last week? It's related, I said. And David, it's worse than I thought, much worse. The second call was to James Morrison, the trustee I'd assigned to oversee the kids' fund. James was a semi-retired financial advisor, someone my father had trusted for 40 years. He picked up on the second ring. James, it's Robert Carrington. I need you to flag the trust account immediately. No withdrawals, no access attempts, nothing without my explicit written authorization. If anyone tries to access it, I want documentation of every attempt. Robert, what's going on? James asked. Someone might try to file fraudulent paperwork claiming medical emergency access, I said. I need you to reject it automatically and report it to me immediately. Can you do that? Consider it done, James said. But Robert, if someone's trying to commit trust fraud, you need to think about criminal charges. This isn't just financial, this is... I know what it is, I said quietly, and I'm handling it. Just protect those accounts. I hung up and sat in the silence of that guest room. Outside I could hear birds in the trees, the neighbor's lawnmower starting up, normal sounds of a normal Tuesday morning in a normal suburban neighborhood, but nothing about my life was normal anymore. I looked down at the recorder in my hand. Elena had made 7 more calls after the ones I'd listened to. I wasn't ready to hear them yet, but I would. I'd listen to every single one. I'd document everything. Because my wife thought I was desperate. She thought I was vulnerable. She thought the walls were closing in and she could grab what she wanted and run before anyone noticed. She had no idea that the walls she was running into were ones I'd built specifically to see what she would do when she hit them. And now I knew exactly what kind of person I'd been married to for 12 years. The kind who would steal from her own children to save herself. The kind who would fake a medical crisis for a 12-year-old girl. The kind who saw a crisis as an opportunity. I stood up and walked to the window. Elena's SUV was gone from the driveway. My kids were gone, the house was empty. But I wasn't alone. I had documentation, I had lawyers. I had trustees and advisors and people who'd helped me build something real over 23 years. And I had time, because Elena thought she was racing against the FBI and the SEC and bankruptcy courts. She had no idea she was racing against someone who'd been 3 steps ahead of her from the very beginning. I picked up my phone and sent a text to David. How quickly can we move up the timeline on this? I don't want to give her enough time to do real damage. His response came back in 30 seconds. I can have preliminary injunctions filed by this afternoon, full documentation by Friday. But Robert, you need to decide what you want the endgame to be here. Divorce? Criminal charges? Both? I looked around the guest room, at her things, her life. The expensive facade she'd built around herself using my money, my work, my years of grinding and sacrifice. I typed back, all of it. I want her to understand exactly what she tried to do. Because this wasn't just about catching my wife in a test anymore. This was about making sure my kids never had to doubt whether their mother loved them more than she loved money. And right now, I had my answer to that question too. She didn't. I waited until Wednesday morning to call her, 10:15 a.m., late enough that she'd be awake and caffeinated, early enough that she'd still be scheming. She picked up on the 3rd ring. Robert, not honey, not, how are you holding up? Just my name, flat and careful. Elena, I said, and I let my voice sound tired, defeated. I talked to the lawyer last night, David. He said there might be a way out of this. I heard her shift position, the sound of fabric rustling. She was sitting up, paying attention now. What kind of way? She asked. The kids' trust, I said, letting the words come out slow, like I didn't want to say them. David said there's an emergency medical clause. If one of the kids had a serious health issue that required immediate expensive treatment, we could petition for early access to the funds. It would require documentation from specialists, proof of medical necessity, but we'd have access to 3.2 million, Elena finished. Her voice had changed. It was sharper now, focused. Robert, that could save everything. We could pay the lawyers, keep the house, get through this investigation without losing our lifestyle. Eleanor, no, I interrupted. I'm not lying about our kids' health to steal from their trust fund. That's fraud. That's a federal crime. If we got caught, we wouldn't get caught, she said quickly. Robert, think about this. Sophia's been having those headaches, remember? We could get a neurologist to run some tests. Maybe they'd find something. Or maybe we'd just say they found something concerning that requires monitoring. Expensive monitoring. I closed my eyes. Listening to my wife pitch medical fraud involving our 12-year-old daughter was worse than I'd imagined. But I needed to push further. I needed her to commit fully. I don't know, I said. This feels wrong. Dad set that money aside for their futures. For college, graduate school, their first homes. What if they really need it someday and it's gone because we... Their futures won't matter if we lose everything now, Eleanor snapped. Robert, be practical. You're facing an FBI investigation. Do you know what happens to families when the father goes to prison? I'd be raising those kids alone, broke, with your name attached to fraud charges. Is that what you want for them? I'm not going to prison, I said. I didn't do anything wrong. Then prove it, she said. Hire the best lawyers. Fight this properly. But you can't do that without money. And right now the only money we can access is in that trust. So you need to decide what's more important. Protecting some abstract principle about their future or protecting your family right now. The way she said your family instead of our family was not lost on me. I need time to think about this, I said. We don't have time, Elena said, and I could hear her pacing now, her heels clicking on whatever floor she was walking across. Every day that passes, the government is building their case. Every day our accounts are frozen. We need to act now, Robert. Today. Today? I let alarm creep into my voice. Elena, I can't just walk into a doctor's office and... You don't have to, she said. I'll handle it. You focus on the legal stuff. I'll make some calls, get Sophia scheduled with a specialist, get the paperwork started. We can have this done by tomorrow if we move fast. Elena, trust me, she said, and the irony of those two words nearly broke my composure. I know you're overwhelmed. I know this feels impossible, but I'm still your wife, Robert. I'm still on your side. Let me help you. Let me help us. I took a breath. Let silence hang for a moment. When I spoke again, my voice was quiet, resigned. Okay, I said. But, Eleanor, if we do this, we do it carefully. No shortcuts. Everything has to look legitimate. It will be legitimate, she said smoothly. Sophia gets a full neurological workup. If they happen to find something that requires expensive ongoing treatment, then we're just being responsible parents accessing emergency funds. That's what the clause is there for. And if they don't find anything, I asked. There was a pause. Then we'll make sure the paperwork says they did. I felt my jaw tighten. That's fraud. That's survival, she corrected. Robert, I need you to understand something. The world doesn't care about your principles. The FBI doesn't care that you're a good person who worked hard and built something legitimate. They see dollar signs and they want to grab them. So we grab ours first, we protect what's ours, that's how you win. I don't want to win like this, I said softly. Then you'll lose everything, she said. And when you're sitting in a prison cell thinking about your principles, I'll be the one explaining to Marcus and Sophia why Daddy couldn't protect them when it mattered. The manipulation was so blatant it was almost artistic. She was simultaneously threatening to abandon me and positioning herself as the hero who would save the kids from my failure. And she was doing it while plotting to steal from those same kids. I'll talk to David, I said. See what documentation we'd need to make this work. But Elena, I need you to promise me something. What? If we do this, we use the money to actually fight the investigation and protect the family, not for anything else. Of course, she said, and her voice was warm now, soothing, the voice she used to use when we were first married, and she wanted something. Robert, I love you. I love our family. Everything I'm doing is to keep us together. You know that, right? Yeah, I said, I know. I hung up and immediately texted James Morrison, she's going to move today or tomorrow. Be ready. His response came back immediately. I have the forms prepared. As soon as she signs anything, we have her. Then I texted David Chen, activate the surveillance. I want video at the trustee's office. Full documentation. David, already arranged. We'll have 4 angles and audio. This is going to hold up in any court. I sat back in my chair looking out at the backyard where my kids used to play, the swing set I'd built for them when Marcus was 4, the garden where Sophia grew tomatoes last summer, the basketball hoop where I'd taught them both to shoot free throws. Eleanor was going to walk into that trustee's office and try to steal $3.2 million from the people who used to play in that yard, from the kids who trusted her to love them unconditionally. And I was going to make sure everyone knew exactly what she'd done. My phone buzzed, a text from Elena. I got us an appointment with Dr. Richard Sherman, top neurologist, 2 p.m. today. I'll take Sophia. You focus on the legal paperwork. I stared at that text for a long moment. She was actually going to drag our daughter to a neurologist and coach her to fake symptoms. She was going to put Sophia through tests and scans, make her anxious about her health, all so Elena could get her hands on money. I typed back, are you sure we should involve Sophia? She doesn't need to be stressed about this. Her response, she won't be stressed. I'll tell her it's just a routine checkup because of the headaches. She won't even know what we're using it for. Stop overthinking this. Stop overthinking this. Like using your child as a prop in a fraud scheme was something I was overanalyzing. I made one more call. This one to Marcus. He was at Elena's mother's house, probably playing video games or swimming in the pool, unaware that his mother was dismantling his future. Dad? His voice was cautious. 14 years old and already learning to navigate adult disasters. Hey, buddy, I said. How are you holding up? I'm okay. Mom said you're dealing with some work stuff. Something about the company. Yeah, I said, but I want you to know something, Marcus. No matter what happens with the business, you and Sophia are going to be fine. You understand that? I made sure a long time ago that you two would always be protected. I know, Dad, he said, but he sounded uncertain. Mom said we might have to move, that we might lose the house. Your mom is worried, I said carefully, but I promise you I have everything under control. The money I set aside for you and your sister, that's untouchable. That's yours no matter what. Okay? Okay, he said. Dad, are you and Mom, are you guys going to be okay? I looked out the window at the empty driveway, at the space where Elena's car used to be. I don't know yet, Marcus, I said, because I'd never lied to my kids and I wasn't going to start now. But whatever happens, I'm always going to be your dad, and I'm always going to protect you, both of you. We talked for a few more minutes about his robotics competition, about whether he'd heard from his friends. Normal dad stuff, the kind of conversation I wanted to have for the rest of my life. When I hung up, I looked at the clock. It was 11:30. Eleanor had a fake doctor's appointment at 2. James was expecting her at his office tomorrow morning. 24 more hours until she signed her name to a document that would destroy any sympathy a judge might have had for her. 24 more hours until I proved to the world exactly what kind of mother would steal from her own children. I wasn't sleeping that night either, but it wasn't from stress anymore. It was anticipation. Thursday morning, 9:15 a.m. I was sitting in James Morrison's back office, watching 3 different camera feeds on a laptop screen. The main office where James sat behind his desk, the reception area where Elena would wait, the conference room where the signing would take place. David Chen sat next to me, his own laptop open, recording everything. We had 2 witnesses, both paralegals from David's firm, ready to notarize and timestamp every document. This wasn't just going to be evidence, this was going to be ironclad. She's here, James said into the small microphone clipped to his tie. On screen, I watched Elena push through the front door of the office. She looked perfect. Hair and makeup done like she was going to lunch with friends, not committing fraud. She wore a cream-colored blazer and dark jeans, expensive but understated. The kind of outfit that said, I'm wealthy but tasteful. The kind of outfit you wore when you wanted people to trust you. She carried a leather portfolio under one arm. Inside that portfolio, I knew, were forged medical documents from Dr. Richard Sherman, claiming that Sophia Carrington required immediate neurological treatment for a rapidly progressing condition that could cost upwards of $2 million. I'd seen the documents already. David had intercepted them from the medical record service Elena had bribed to create them. They were good forgeries, professional grade, the kind that would have fooled most people who weren't specifically looking for fraud. But we were looking for fraud. We'd been looking for it from the moment Elena made her first phone call about the trust. "Mrs. Carrington," James said, standing to shake her hand, "please have a seat. Can I get you anything? Coffee? Water?" "No, thank you," Elena said, settling into the chair across from his desk. She placed the portfolio on her lap, both hands resting on top of it, protective. "I just want to get this taken care of as quickly as possible. My daughter needs treatment and time is critical." "Of course," James said, his voice neutral and professional. "I was sorry to hear about Sophia's diagnosis. Robert mentioned you'd been to several specialists." "3," Elena said without hesitation. The first two weren't sure what they were looking at. "But Dr. Sherman, he's one of the top neurologists in the region, and he confirmed our worst fears. It's a rare condition affecting the blood vessels in her brain. Without intervention, she could have a stroke. She's 12 years old, and she could have a stroke." She delivered this with just the right amount of emotion, voice cracking slightly, eyes wet but no actual tears. The performance of a concerned mother who was holding it together for her child's sake. It was almost impressive. "That's terrifying," James said. "I can't imagine what you and Robert are going through." "Robert's dealing with his own crisis right now," Elena said, and there was an edge to her voice. "The FBI investigation is taking all of his attention, so it's falling to me to make sure Sophia gets the care she needs. That's why I'm here. Robert set up this trust years ago, and frankly, I never thought we'd need to access it. But this is exactly the kind of emergency the trust was designed for." "Absolutely," James said. "Medical emergencies are one of the few circumstances where early distribution is permitted. I'll need to see the documentation, of course. The trust requires pretty thorough proof before we can authorize a withdrawal of this size." "I understand," Elena said. She opened the portfolio and pulled out a stack of papers, sliding them across the desk. "This is everything. Dr. Sherman's diagnosis, the treatment plan, cost estimates from the specialists he's recommending. As you can see, we're looking at between 1.8 and 2.3 million for the full course of treatment." James picked up the papers and began reading through them slowly. I watched Elena on the screen. She sat perfectly still, hands folded in her lap now, the picture of a worried mother waiting for news about her daughter's future. What she didn't know was that every word she'd just said was being recorded in high-definition video and audio. What she didn't know was that David had already contacted the real Dr. Richard Sherman, who confirmed he'd never seen Sophia Carrington and had no idea why his signature was on these documents. What she didn't know was that we'd traced the payment for the forged documents back to her personal checking account, the one with $78,000 that she'd been so worried about protecting. "This looks very serious," James said, setting down the papers. "Mrs. Carrington, I want to make sure I understand the situation completely. You're requesting an emergency distribution of $3.2 million from the irrevocable trust established for Marcus and Sophia Carrington, based on Sophia's medical needs." "Yes," Elena said. "The full amount. We'll need it all to cover the treatment and any complications that might arise." "And Robert is in agreement with this withdrawal?" James asked. "Robert and I discussed it extensively," Elena said. "He's devastated that it's come to this, but he agrees that Sophia's health comes first. He would be here himself, but as I mentioned, the FBI situation is consuming all his time." It was fascinating to watch her lie so smoothly. Each word came out with perfect conviction. She believed what she was saying, or at least she'd convinced herself she believed it. "I see," James said. He pulled out a different set of papers from his desk drawer. "Well, the good news is that everything here appears to be in order. The trust does have provisions for medical emergency withdrawals. Based on these documents, I can authorize the full distribution." Elena's posture changed, just slightly. Her shoulders relaxed, her hands unclenched. Relief flooded her face. "Thank you," she said. "You have no idea what this means. Sophia is my baby. The thought of anything happening to her— I'm a father myself, James said. I understand completely. Now, I'll need you to sign several documents authorizing the distribution. The trust requires multiple signatures and acknowledgements just to ensure everything is properly documented. Of course, Eleanor said, whatever you need. James stood and gestured toward the conference room. Let's step in here where we'll have more space. I have the documents laid out for you. They moved into the conference room. I watched Elena sit at the long table, looking at the papers spread out in front of her. There were at least a dozen documents, all printed on official-looking letterhead. This is a lot of paperwork, Eleanor said, but she was already reaching for the pen James offered her. Trust law is complicated, James said, especially for early distributions. We need to document everything to protect you, to protect the children, and to ensure the IRS doesn't flag this as an improper withdrawal. Right, Elena said. She started signing. Her signature was quick and confident. She barely read any of the documents. She just signed wherever James pointed, one after another. Date, signature, initial, date, signature, initial. She didn't hesitate for a second. Tell me in the comments, is there anything lower than a parent stealing their child's future? This one is the critical document, James said, sliding a particularly official-looking paper toward her. This is the actual withdrawal authorization. It states that you, Elena Marie Carrington, are requesting the full disbursement of $3.2 million from the Marcus and Sophia Carrington Trust, established October 12, 2019, for the stated purpose of medical emergency treatment for Sophia Ann Carrington. Elena read this one. Her eyes scanned the text, and I watched her face carefully on the screen. She was looking for something, probably making sure the money would be distributed to her, not to some hospital or treatment facility. And there it was in paragraph 3. Funds to be transferred to Elena M. Carrington personal account, Bank of America account ending in 7734, for direct payment to medical providers. That was the offshore account she'd opened 3 days ago, the one she thought no one knew about. Her face smoothed out. Everything she was looking for was right there in black and white, $3.2 million going straight to her personal control. This looks correct, she said. She signed it. Her signature went onto the line at the bottom of the page, and James immediately pulled a notary stamp from his jacket pocket. He pressed it firmly onto the document, the sound sharp in the quiet conference room. Excellent, James said. Just one more formality. He reached under the table and pulled out a red folder. He opened it and laid another document on top of the one Elena had just signed. What's this? Elena asked, and for the first time I heard uncertainty in her voice. This, James said, and his voice had changed. It was harder now, professional but no longer friendly. This is a time-stamped affidavit confirming that you, Elena Marie Carrington, have just attempted to defraud an irrevocable trust by using falsified medical documents to illegally access funds held for minor children. Elena went very still. What? The medical documents you provided were forged, James said. Dr. Richard Sherman has confirmed he never examined Sophia Carrington and did not sign any of the paperwork you brought here today. The treatment plan you presented is fictitious. The costs you cited are fabricated. And every word you've said in this office for the last 20 minutes has been recorded and witnessed. The color drained from Elena's face. So you're making a mistake. Dr. Sherman has filed a police report about someone using his credentials fraudulently, James finished. The police report was filed yesterday afternoon. Would you like me to provide you with the case number? Elena stood up so fast her chair tipped backward. I want to speak to my lawyer. That's an excellent idea, said a voice from the doorway. She spun around and I watched her face on the screen as she saw me for the first time. I was standing in the doorway of the conference room, wearing my best suit, the charcoal Tom Ford I'd bought to close my biggest deal 3 years ago. I looked rested, put together. Nothing like the desperate, defeated man she'd been talking to on the phone yesterday. Robert? Her voice was barely a whisper. What are you doing here? I walked into the conference room and stood at the opposite end of the table from her. David Chen followed me in, carrying his laptop, the screen still showing the recording of everything she'd just done. What am I doing here? I repeated. I'm protecting my children from their mother. The FBI investigation, Eleanor said, her voice rising. The embezzlement. Tom being arrested. You said, I lied, I said simply. There is no FBI investigation. Tom is on vacation in Costa Rica. The company is fine, everything's fine, Elena, except for you. She grabbed the edge of the table, her knuckles white. You set me up. I tested you, I corrected. I told you I might be losing everything, and I watched to see what you would do. Would you stand by me? Would you comfort me? Would you be my partner? I was trying to save us, she shouted. I was trying to protect our family. By stealing from our children, I asked, my voice cold. By forging medical documents. By lying about Sophia having a brain condition. That's how you protect our family. The trust was our money anyway, Elena snapped. You put it in their names for tax purposes. It's not like they were going to use it tomorrow. We could have paid it back once you sorted out the FBI thing. There is no FBI thing, I said again. And that money was never ours. It was from my father's estate. Money he left specifically for his grandchildren's futures. Money I invested and grew for them, not for you. I'm their mother, Eleanor said, and tears were streaming down her face now. Real tears, finally. But they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of anger and fear. I have every right to make financial decisions for them. Not when those decisions involve fraud, David Chen said, speaking for the first time. Mrs. Carrington, my name is David Chen. I'm Mr. Carrington's attorney. What you've done here today constitutes trust fraud, identity theft, forgery, and attempted theft of assets exceeding $1 million. Those are federal charges. Eleanor's legs seemed to give out. She dropped back into her chair, her head in her hands. This can't be happening, she whispered. This can't be happening. I looked at her sitting there, this woman I'd shared a bed with for 12 years, this woman who'd held my children when they were born, this woman who I'd trusted with everything. And I felt nothing. No pity, no regret. Just a cold, hard satisfaction that I'd protected my kids before it was too late. James, I said, not taking my eyes off Elena. Do you have everything you need? Everything, James confirmed. Signed documents, video and audio recording, witness testimony. It's all admissible. Good, I said. Send copies to the police department, the DA's office, and my divorce attorney. I want charges filed by end of business today. Robert, please, Elena said, looking up at me. Her mascara was running. Her perfect composure was gone. Please don't do this. Think about the kids. Think about what this will do to them. I'm thinking about the kids, I said. That's all I've been thinking about. And what I know now is that they need to be protected from you. I turned to David. I want full custody. I want supervised visitation only. I want a forensic accounting of every dollar she spent in the last 3 years. And I want her completely cut off from any access to their trust funds, college accounts, or any financial resource connected to them. Consider it done, David said. I walked to the door and stopped, looking back at Elena one last time. You could have had everything, I said quietly. All you had to do was love me. Actually love me, not what I could buy you. But you couldn't even fake it when you thought I was losing it all. I do love you, she whispered. No, I said. You love the lifestyle. You love the money. You love what people think when they see you in a Range Rover and designer clothes. But you don't love me. And you sure as hell don't love our kids enough to protect them from yourself. I walked out of that conference room and didn't look back. Behind me, I heard Elena start to sob. Deep, wrenching sounds that might have broken my heart a week ago. But my heart had already broken. It broke the moment I listened to her try to fake a medical emergency for our 12-year-old daughter. This was just the sound of consequences catching up to someone who thought she was too smart to get caught. And I had no sympathy left to give. I was standing in the parking lot when the police cruiser pulled up. 2 officers, a male detective I didn't recognize, and a female officer who looked like she'd done this 1,000 times. Mr. Morrison called us, the detective said, extending his hand. Detective Mike Reeves. You're Robert Carrington? That's me, I said. My attorney is inside, David Chen. He has all the documentation you'll need. We'll need a statement from you as well, Reeves said. But first, we need to speak with your wife. "She's in the conference room," I said. "Second door on the right." I watched them walk inside. I didn't follow. I'd already seen enough. I stood there in the October sunshine, looking at the office building where my marriage had just officially ended. The trees were turning orange and gold. Someone's radio was playing in a car 2 spaces over. Normal sounds, normal day, except nothing about this was normal. 5 minutes later, they brought her out. Elena was between the 2 officers, her hands cuffed behind her back. She wasn't crying anymore. Her face was blank, shocked, like she still couldn't believe this was actually happening. "Robert," she said when she saw me. "Robert, please, tell them this is a misunderstanding." I looked at her, this woman who'd shared my bed, who'd been there when both my kids were born, who I'd trusted with every part of my life. "It's not a misunderstanding," I said quietly. "You tried to steal $3.2 million from our children using forged medical documents. That's exactly what happened. That's exactly what you're being arrested for." "Mrs. Carrington," Detective Reeves said, his hand on her elbow, "you have the right to remain silent." I listened to him read her the Miranda rights. Every word felt like a nail in a coffin, not just the coffin of our marriage, but the coffin of the person I'd thought she was. "Where are you taking her?" I asked when Reeves finished. "County lockup," he said. "Arraignment will probably be tomorrow morning. She can post bail if someone's willing to front it." I nodded. Elena looked at me and I saw hope flash across her face, like maybe I was going to be that someone. Like maybe I was going to post her bail and we could work this out. "Her brother lives in Manhattan," I said to the detective. "Alex Whitmore. She'll probably call him." Eleanor's face crumbled. "You're not going to help me?" "Help you?" I repeated. "Eleanor, you tried to steal from my children, our children. You faked a brain tumor for Sophia. You were willing to put her through unnecessary medical tests and procedures just to access money that wasn't yours. Why would I help you?" "Because I'm your wife," she whispered. "Not for much longer," I said. They put her in the back of the cruiser. I watched them drive away, the lights flashing but no siren. Just a quiet Thursday morning arrest in a suburban office park. David Chen came out and stood next to me. "Is Ice okay?" "No," I said honestly, "but I will be." "The police want your statement," David said, "and we need to start the divorce proceedings immediately. Every hour we wait is an hour she could try something else." "Then let's not wait," I said. The divorce took 6 weeks. Under normal circumstances, with 12 years of marriage and 2 kids, it would have taken months, maybe a year. But these weren't normal circumstances. David filed an emergency motion for sole custody within 2 hours of Elena's arrest. He included the video footage from James's office, the forged medical documents, the recorded phone calls where she discussed stealing from the kids' trust, the bank records showing she'd paid $8,000 to a document forger. The judge took one look at the evidence and granted me temporary full custody that same day. "Mr. Carrington," Judge Patricia Morrison said, looking at me over her reading glasses, "I've been on this bench for 19 years, and I have never seen anything quite like this. Your wife didn't just commit fraud. She weaponized your child's health. She was willing to traumatize your daughter with fake medical diagnoses for personal financial gain." "Yes, Your Honor," I said. "Under the circumstances, I'm granting you immediate sole legal and physical custody of both minors. Mrs. Carrington will be permitted supervised visitation only, 1 hour per week, pending the outcome of her criminal trial. If she's convicted of the fraud charges, even those visitation rights will be reviewed." Eleanor's lawyer, some guy named Mitchell she'd hired with the last of her emergency fund, tried to object. "Your Honor, my client maintains her innocence. Your client was recorded on video signing documents to steal millions of dollars from her own children," Judge Morrison said coldly. "Her innocence or lack thereof will be determined in criminal court. In this court, I'm focused on the best interests of Marcus and Sophia Carrington, and those interests are clearly served by keeping them in their father's custody." Bang! The gavel came down. Eleanor sat at the defendant's table, her shoulders shaking. She'd lost 20 pounds since the arrest. Her hair wasn't styled anymore. She wore a cheap grey suit that looked like it came from a discount store. The woman who'd insisted on designer everything was falling apart. Part of me felt sorry for her, a very small part, the part that remembered the good times, back when I still believed she loved me. But then I thought about Sophia, about how Elena had been ready to tell our 12-year-old daughter that she had a brain tumor, how she'd been ready to put her through MRIs and specialist appointments and make her terrified for her own life, all for money. And the sympathy evaporated. The actual divorce decree came 4 weeks later. David had pushed for an expedited hearing based on the criminal charges, and the judge agreed. Given the fraud charges and the documented evidence of Mrs. Carrington's willingness to harm the minor children for financial gain, the judge read from her decision, this court finds that she has acted in bad faith and violated her fiduciary duty as a parent and spouse. Therefore, Mr. Carrington is awarded full custody, the marital home, and all shared assets. Mrs. Carrington is awarded 0 alimony and will be responsible for her own legal fees. 0 alimony in a 12-year marriage where I'd been the sole breadwinner. Eleanor's lawyer tried to appeal. Your Honor, my client has no means of support. Mr. Carrington has millions. Mr. Carrington has millions because he earned them through legal means, Judge Morrison said. Your client attempted to steal from her children. She committed fraud. She has forfeited any claim to his assets or support. Petition denied. Eleanor stumbled out of the courtroom like she'd been physically hit. I watched her go, Mitchell trailing behind her, probably already calculating how he was going to get paid for his work. David put a hand on my shoulder. It's done, he said. You're free. Free? The word felt strange. I wasn't sure I'd ever be free from the memory of what my wife had tried to do. But at least my kids were protected. That's what mattered. That's all that mattered. The social consequences came faster than I expected. Eleanor's mugshot hit the local news 2 days after her arrest. Local woman arrested for trust fund fraud, read the headline. The article included details about the forged medical documents, the attempt to steal from her children's trust, and the surveillance video that caught her in the act. By the end of that week, her phone had gone silent. The women she'd had lunch with every Thursday, gone. The book club she'd been part of for 8 years. They politely suggested she take some time to focus on her legal issues. The charity board she'd sat on. They asked for her resignation. I know this because Marcus told me. He'd been checking his mother's social media, worried about her, and he showed me the comments people were leaving. How could you do that to your own children? Disgusting. You don't deserve to be called a mother. Hope you enjoy prison. The cruelty was shocking even to me. These were the same people who'd smiled and laughed at Elena's parties, who'd complimented her house and her clothes and told her how lucky she was. Now they were competing to see who could insult her most viciously. Dad, Marcus said, looking up from his phone, should I tell her that people are saying these things? No, I said. Your mother made her choices. These are the consequences. She doesn't need to hear it from you. But I knew she was seeing it. I knew because her brother Alex called me 3 weeks after the arrest, his voice tight with anger. You destroyed her, he said. She's lost everything. Her home, her kids, her friends, her reputation. Was that really necessary, Robert? I didn't destroy her, I said calmly. She destroyed herself. I just made sure everyone knew what she tried to do. She was panicking, Alex said. You convinced her the FBI was coming. You manipulated her into stealing from her own children, I finished. Alex, I gave her a test. I wanted to see if she'd stand by me when she thought I was losing everything. Instead, she tried to rob Marcus and Sophia blind and run. That's not panic, that's character. He was quiet for a moment, then, she's asking me to hire her a better lawyer to fight the charges. But Robert, I can't afford. Then she'll have to use a public defender, I said. That's not my problem anymore. You really don't care what happens to her? Alex asked. I thought about that. Did I care? The woman I'd married, the woman I'd thought I knew, I would have cared very much what happened to her. But that woman had never existed. The real Elena, the one who saw our kids as access points to money, who was willing to fake cancer and brain tumors and God knows what else to get what she wanted. No, I didn't care what happened to her. I care that my kids are safe, I said. That's it. That's all I have room to care about right now. Alex hung up without saying goodbye. 2 weeks later, Elena took a plea deal. 5 years probation, community service, restitution of the $8,000 she'd paid for the forged documents, and a permanent criminal record. Fraud, forgery, identity theft. She avoided jail time, but she'd be a convicted felon for the rest of her life. Her lawyer sent David a letter saying she'd accepted the plea because she didn't want to put her children through a trial. The truth was simpler. She'd accepted the plea because the evidence against her was overwhelming. If she'd gone to trial, she'd have lost and ended up in prison for 2 to 5 years. This way, she got to stay out. She got to pretend she was being noble, but everyone knew the truth. The video didn't lie. The documents didn't lie. The bank records didn't lie. Elena had tried to steal from her kids and she'd gotten caught. Everything else was just damage control. 6 months later, I stood in the Piazza di Spagna in Rome, watching Marcus and Sofia throw coins into the Trevi fountain. It was late afternoon, the golden hour, and the light made everything look like a painting. "Make a wish," Sofia said, closing her eyes tight before tossing her euro into the water. "What did you wish for?" Marcus asked. "Can't tell you," she said, grinning. "Then it won't come true." I knew what she'd wished for. She'd told me on the plane ride over, when she thought I was asleep. She'd whispered to Marcus that she wished their family could stay happy forever. Not their old family. Their new one. Just the 3 of us. We'd been in Italy for 5 days. Not for the wedding renewal I'd once planned. Not for the party Elena had wanted. Just a trip. Just us. Eating gelato and visiting museums and staying up too late in a hotel room playing cards. I told the kids the truth about everything 6 months ago, the day after Elena's arrest. Sat them down in the living room and explained that Mom had made some very bad choices. That she'd tried to take money that belonged to them, that I'd had to stop her. Marcus had taken it the hardest. He'd asked why. Why would Mom do that? Didn't she love them? I'd told him the truth. "I think your mom loves the idea of you, but when it came down to choosing between you and money, she chose money, and that's something she's going to have to live with for the rest of her life." Sofia had cried. But she was 12, and 12-year-olds are resilient. She'd started asking about the visits before I'd even explained them. "When can we see her? Is she okay? Where is she living?" Eleanor was living in a studio apartment in a neighborhood 40 minutes away. She'd gotten a job at a Target, working the register and stocking shelves for $13 an hour. It was the only place that would hire a convicted felon. She saw the kids once a month now, 1 hour supervised by a court-appointed social worker. They met in a bland office with plastic chairs and children's books that were too young for them. Marcus had stopped going after the 3rd visit. "She just cries the whole time," he'd told me. "She keeps saying sorry and asking when she can come home. Dad, I don't want to go anymore." I'd told him he didn't have to. Sofia still went once a month and came home quiet and sad every time. She asked if I was mad at her, Sofia had said after the last visit, 2 weeks before we left for Italy. I told her I wasn't mad. I was just disappointed. 12 years old and already understanding the difference between anger and disappointment, already learning that sometimes the people you love hurt you and you have to decide whether to keep loving them or protect yourself. I hated that my kids had to learn that so young. But better they learned it now, with me there to help them process it, than when they were adults and the stakes were higher. "Dad," Marcus called out, breaking me from my thoughts, "come throw a coin in. You have to make a wish too." I walked over to the fountain and pulled out a euro. The legend said if you threw a coin into the Trevi fountain, you'd return to Rome someday. I didn't care about that. I cared about the moment, right here. My kids beside me, healthy and safe and happy. I threw the coin and made my wish, not for anything grand, just for this. For more days like today, for more chances to be the father they deserved, for the wisdom to keep them safe without making them afraid of the world. "What did you wish for?" Sofia asked. "Same thing I always wish for," I said. "For you two to be happy and healthy." "Boring," Marcus said, but he was smiling. We walked back to the hotel as the sun set over Rome. We ordered room service pizza and watched Italian game shows we couldn't understand. Sofia fell asleep on my shoulder while Marcus scrolled through his phone, showing me pictures of the places we'd seen that day. This was my family now. smaller than it used to be, broken in ways that might never fully heal, but real, honest, built on something more solid than money or status or appearances, built on trust, on showing up, on choosing each other when the world got hard. Elena had sold all of that for $3.2 million, money she never even got, money that would have been gone in a few years anyway, spent on designer bags and vacation homes and whatever else she thought would make her happy. And now she worked at Target, lived in a studio apartment, saw her children 1 hour a month under supervision. 6 months ago, she'd had everything: a beautiful home, healthy kids, a husband who loved her. All she'd had to do was choose us, choose love over money, choose family over fear. She'd made her choice, and now she lived with it every day. I looked down at Sophia, asleep on my shoulder, and Marcus, lost in his phone but close enough that I could feel his presence. These were my choices, my priorities, the people I'd protect with everything I had. I thought about the night I'd come home and staged that crisis, the moment I'd decided to test my wife. People had asked me since then if I regretted it, if I wished I'd just trusted her. No, I didn't regret it, because better to know the truth and deal with it than to live a lie for the rest of my life. Better to find out who Elena really was while I still had time to protect my kids. Money can be replaced. Trust cannot. That's what I'd learned through all of this. You can lose every dollar in your bank account and earn it back. You can lose your house, your car, your possessions and rebuild. But trust, once that's broken, it's gone. No amount of apologies or promises or time can bring it back. Elena could say she was sorry every day for the rest of her life, and it wouldn't change what she'd tried to do. It wouldn't change the moment she decided our children's futures were worth less than her comfort. My phone buzzed. A text from David Chen. Elena's supervised visitation report came through. Social worker says she spent the whole hour crying and asking Sophia to forgive her. Sophia told her she needed more time to think about it. Your daughter is wise beyond her years. I smiled and tucked the phone away. Yes, she was. Both my kids were. Because they'd learned the hardest lesson there is, that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you most are the ones who hurt you deepest. But they'd also learned that they had someone who would always choose them, always protect them, always put them first. And that was worth more than all the money in the world. She sold her family for $3.2 million. Now she realizes that family was priceless. If you believe people who try to steal from their own children deserve exactly what they get, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Share this story. Tell people what happens when you choose money over the people who love you. And to everyone watching, treasure the people who stand by you when times get hard. Not the ones who show up for the good times and disappear when things get tough. The real ones. The ones who hold your hand in the dark and say, "We'll figure this out together." Those people are rare. And when you find them, you do everything in your power to keep them. Thanks for listening to my story. I hope you never have to live through anything like it. But if you do, I hope you have the courage to face the truth, protect the ones who matter, and walk away from anyone who proves they don't deserve your trust. Take care of yourselves, and take care of each other.